My wife cheated on me for 8 years with my younger brother, but when I discovered they also stole $180,000 from me, I sent them both to prison, and now I'm raising my daughter alone while they pay for destroying my family. I'm 36 years old. I work as a mechanical engineer at an industrial design firm in San Jose, and I need to get this story off my chest because what happened 6 months ago basically destroyed everything I thought was my life. My wife, Isabella, cheated on me for 8 years with my younger brother, Lucas, and when I say 8 years, I mean they literally started their affair before she and I even got married. But wait, because it gets worse, much worse, and there are still days when I wake up thinking, it was all a horrible nightmare, and that any moment I'm going to really wake up and my life is going to go back to normal. I guess I should start at the beginning, like 7 years ago, when Lucas introduced me to Isabella at a tech expo in San Francisco. Lucas was always the charismatic one in the family. You know, that type of person who walks into a room and automatically everyone turns to look at him. I was the older brother, the responsible one, the one who went into engineering, because I was good with numbers and because Dad always said I needed a stable career. Lucas, on the other hand, got into real estate and was incredible at it. He was like 29 years old at the time and was already making more money than me, driving a BMW and always wearing expensive clothes, and that air of confidence I never had. We were close, or so I thought. We talked often and went out for beers on Fridays when we were both free. He told me I was his best friend, his older brother he always admired, and I believed him because, well, why wouldn't I? The day I met Isabella was in March 7 years ago. I remember the date perfectly because it was Mom's birthday, and I had gone to the expo because my company had a booth there. Lucas showed up around mid-afternoon with this incredible woman, like Isabella was 27 years old at the time, worked as an event coordinator, and was simply beautiful, with that long brown hair and those green eyes that looked at you like they were really seeing. You know what I mean? Lucas introduced me to her and said, "Look, Michael, this is Isabella. She works with one of my clients, and I thought you two would get along well." At that moment, I didn't think anything weird. Lucas was always introducing me to people, but Isabella and I started talking, and it was like we had connected instantly. We talked about everything, about design, about architecture, about how engineering and event planning were more similar than people thought, and when I realized it, 2 hours had already passed and Lucas had gone off to network with other people. I asked for her number that night, and we started going out like a week later. Everything was fast, honestly, like we saw each other almost every day. She would come to my apartment in San Jose, or I would drive to hers in Mountain View. And within months, we were already talking about moving in together. Lucas seemed super happy for us. He always invited us to dinner. Sometimes he came to our double dates. When I introduced Isabella to my friends, and he was the typical cool brother-in-law that everyone liked. I remember Isabella always said she was so lucky that I had a brother like Lucas, that he was so thoughtful and so fun. And I felt proud, you know, like I had built this perfect circle of important people in my life. We got engaged a year after we started dating, in April 7 years ago. Lucas was my best man, obviously, and gave a speech at the wedding that made half the people cry, talking about how I had always been his hero and how Isabella was the perfect woman for me, and how he was sure we were going to be happy forever. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. I should have noticed how Isabella and Lucas looked at each other sometimes, or how she always knew where he was or what he was doing. But at that moment, I was on cloud nine, completely in love and trusting, the two people I loved most in the world, besides my parents. We bought a house in San Jose like 2 months after getting married. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. A 3-bedroom place with a small yard where Isabella said someday our kids were going to play. And Ruby came like 2 years after the marriage, 5 years ago, and it was the happiest day of my life. Like I cried when the nurse put her in my arms and I thought, this is it. This is my family. This is what matters. Isabella was an incredible mom from the start, or at least that's what it seemed like, and Lucas became the fun uncle who came every Sunday to play with Ruby, bought her expensive gifts, took her to the zoo when Isabella and I needed time alone. Ruby adored him. She always ran to the door screaming Uncle Lucas when he arrived, and he would buy her those explorer hats she loved, and they would play looking for dinosaurs in the yard. Everything started to change like 2 years ago, or maybe a little more. I'm not sure exactly when, but it was gradual. You know, the kind of change you don't notice until it's too late. Isabella started being more distant, always glued to her phone, and when I asked her what was wrong, she said it was work, that she had a lot of events to coordinate, and that she was stressed. She started going on girls' trips with her friends. Like once a month, she would go away for a whole weekend to Las Vegas or Los Angeles or San Diego, and I never questioned anything because, well, she needed her space and I trusted her completely. Now I know those trips weren't with her friends, or at least not all of them, but at the time, I was the trusting husband telling her to have fun and that I would stay with Ruby. The thing is that 6 months ago was our 7th anniversary, and I wanted to do something special. Like, really special. Because I felt like Isabella and I had drifted apart a bit, and I thought a big celebration could reconnect us. I hired an event coordinator, ironic now that I think about it, and organized a party at a winery in Sonoma. I invited like 50 people, friends, family, work colleagues, and spent like $10,000 on everything, which was a lot of money for us, but I thought it was worth it. Lucas was obviously invited. Him and his girlfriend of the moment. A girl I think was named Amanda or Alyssa. I don't even remember anymore. And everyone was excited about the party. The night of the party was perfect at first. The weather was incredible. There was a string quartet playing, the food was delicious, and everyone was congratulating us and telling us what a beautiful couple we were. Isabella was radiant, wearing a navy blue dress that fit her perfectly, and I felt like the luckiest man in the world. Lucas arrived late, as always, but when he arrived, he was the life of the party, telling jokes, dancing with Ruby, taking pictures with everyone. At one point in the night, Isabella's best friend, Melissa, asked for a microphone to make a toast, and she said something that, at the time, seemed weird to me, but I didn't give it much importance. She said something like, "I want to toast to Michael and Isabella." Of course, but I also want to recognize Lucas, who has been a rock for Isabella all these years, someone she has always been able to count on. Everyone toasted, and I thought, well, yeah, Lucas is a great brother-in-law, but there was something in Melissa's tone that sounded strange, like she was saying something more than what the words implied. The party ended around 11 at night, and everyone left. Isabella and I took Ruby to my parents' house because she was going to stay there that night. And we went back to a hotel in Sonoma where we had reserved a suite. Isabella fell asleep almost immediately, said she was exhausted, and I stayed awake for a while, looking at the ceiling and thinking about how lucky I was, having no idea that my life was about to explode into pieces. The next morning, early, like at 7, someone knocked on our room door. Isabella was still asleep, and I opened the door thinking it was room service. But it was Melissa, Isabella's best friend, and she looked terrible, like she had been crying and her hands were shaking. She said, "Michael, I need to talk to you. It's important." And I let her in, confused, asking her what was wrong, if she was okay. Melissa pulled a flash drive out of her purse and gave it to me, and said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know if I should give you this, but I can't stay silent anymore. Isabella is my best friend, but what's happening isn't right, and you deserve to know the truth." I stood there, holding the flash drive, not understanding anything. And I asked her, "The truth about what?" Melissa looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "Just look at what's on that drive. There are emails, photos, financial records. It's all there." And then she left before I could say anything else. Isabella was still asleep, and I went to the hotel's business center where there were public computers, because something inside me told me I didn't want to open that flash drive on my personal laptop, like I instinctively knew that what I was going to see was going to contaminate everything. I plugged in the flash drive, and there were like 5 folders organized by year, from 8 years ago to the present. I opened the first folder, and there were emails, hundreds of emails between Isabella and Lucas. And when I say romantic emails, I mean explicit messages, intimate, talking about how much they loved each other, when they were going to see each other next, hotels where they had stayed together. There were emails from 8 years ago, like a year before Isabella and I started dating. And then I realized they were already together. When Lucas introduced me to her, the whole thing was staged. He introduced her to me on purpose. I kept reading, and there were emails from weeks before our wedding, with Isabella telling Lucas she loved him, but that she needed to go through with the wedding. With me because I was stable, and because her parents expected her to marry someone with a solid career. Lucas would respond that he understood, That he wasn't ready to settle down anyway, but that they would never end. That what they had was forever. There were photos, literally hundreds of photos of them together in places I recognized, hotels where Isabella had told me she was on work trips or girls' trips, fancy restaurants in San Francisco where supposedly she was having dinner with clients. There were photos of them in bed, photos kissing, photos that made me physically sick, like I had to run to the bathroom in the business center and throw up because my body couldn't process what I was seeing. But the worst part, what really destroyed me, was finding a folder with financial records showing that Isabella had been helping Lucas launder money from his real estate businesses, like she had been creating shell companies in her name, moving money between accounts, hiding income from properties that Lucas sold under the table. I don't know how long I stayed there sitting staring at the screen, probably like 2 hours, reading every email, looking at every photo, trying to process 8 years of lies. My whole life was a lie. My marriage was a lie. My brother was a lie. And I had been the idiot who didn't see anything. I thought about Ruby and started crying right there in the hotel business center, because what if Ruby wasn't even my daughter? What if all this time she had been Lucas's and I had been raising my brother's daughter without knowing it? My hands were shaking so much I could barely copy all the files to my email and my phone. But I did it. I saved every piece of evidence because I knew I was going to need it. I went back to the room, and Isabella was already awake, sitting on the bed checking her phone, and she saw me come in and smiled at me like nothing, asked me where I had been and if I wanted to go have breakfast. I stood there at the door looking at her and thinking, this woman is a stranger. I've been married for 7 years to someone I don't know at all. I told her, we need to talk. And she must have seen something in my face because her smile disappeared immediately, and she went pale. I asked her directly, how long have you been sleeping with Lucas? And Isabella froze, literally froze for like 5 seconds, and then started crying and saying she was sorry, that she never wanted to hurt me, that it was complicated, that she loved me, but that she also loved Lucas, and that she didn't know how to stop it. I yelled at her, don't give me that shit. You've been cheating on me for 8 years. Since before we got married, you and my brother set up this whole charade for me. And she was crying and saying it wasn't like that. That at first she was with Lucas, but that when she met me, she really fell in love with me and thought she could forget about Lucas, but that he kept showing up in her life and that eventually they got back together. I showed her some of the emails on my phone, the ones from weeks before our wedding where she told Lucas that I was the safe and stable option and she couldn't even look me in the eye. I asked her about the money laundering, and she swore she didn't know the magnitude of what she was doing, that Lucas told her he just needed help with some paperwork for his businesses, and that she trusted him. I don't know if I believed that or not. Honestly, at that moment, I couldn't believe anything that came out of her mouth. I told her I wanted a divorce and that I was taking Ruby, and that she wasn't going to see a cent of my money or the house, and she started begging, saying we could go to therapy, that she could change, that she would never see Lucas again if I gave her another chance. But I was already mentally out of that marriage. Like the moment I saw those photos, something inside me died. The love I felt for her simply evaporated and turned into this mix of rage and disgust, and a sadness so deep I couldn't even breathe well. I packed my suitcase right there, didn't take anything of hers, just my things, and left the hotel, leaving her crying on the bed. I drove straight to my parents' house, picked up Ruby, who was happily playing with my parents, and told them I needed to talk to them in private. I told them everything, showed them the emails and photos, and my mom started crying while my dad turned red with anger and said he was going to kill Lucas. Which obviously he wasn't going to do, but I understand the sentiment. My parents stayed with Ruby while I drove to Lucas's office in Palo Alto. It was Sunday, but I knew he would be there because he always worked on Sundays. It was part of his successful businessman image. I walked into his office without knocking, and he was sitting at his desk looking at his computer, and when he saw me, he immediately knew that I knew. I saw it on his face, that flash of panic before he put on his charm mask. I got up from my chair and yelled at him, "Do you have anything to say to me?" And Lucas sighed and said, "Michael, it's complicated. You don't understand." I told him, "Explain it to me then. Explain to me how fucking my wife for 8 years is complicated. Explain to me how introducing her to me knowing she was already with you is complicated." Lucas leaned back in his chair with that casual attitude he always had and said, Isabella and I have history. I met her first, but she wanted stability, and you could give her that. I wasn't at that point in my life. So yes, I introduced her to you thinking maybe it would work out and we could all be happy. I asked him, and were you happy sleeping with my wife on my anniversary, in my house, probably in my bed? And he said nothing, just looked at me with those cold eyes I had never seen in him before. I told him I knew about the money laundering and that I was going to report it to the authorities, and that's when he got nervous. He got up from his desk and told me not to. Be stupid. That it was going to splash back on me too because Isabella was involved and she was my wife. I told him I didn't give a shit, that he and Isabella could rot in jail for all I cared, and I left his office before doing something I would regret. Like, I really wanted to hit him, but I knew that would only make things worse. That same afternoon, I hired the best divorce lawyer I could find, gave him all the files from the flash drive, and also contacted a private investigator to investigate the money laundering more thoroughly because I needed to make sure I wasn't involved in any way. The next thing I did was ask my lawyer to order a paternity test for Ruby because I needed to know the truth even if that truth was going to destroy me. The idea that Ruby wasn't biologically mine was something I couldn't process. Like that girl was my life. I loved her more than anything in the world, but I needed to know. The results took like 2 weeks, and they were the longest 2 weeks of my life. Every day I woke up thinking I might lose my daughter, that my whole life was an even deeper lie than I already knew. When the results came and confirmed that Ruby was 99.9% my biological daughter, I cried with relief. Literally sat on the floor of my office and cried like I hadn't cried in years. Meanwhile, the private investigator had found enough evidence of money laundering to present a case, and I went to the police with everything. The emails, the financial records, the shell bank accounts, everything. Isabella was arrested like 3 weeks after our anniversary. They arrested her at our house while she was packing her things to move to an apartment, and I felt nothing, like I should have felt something. Guilt, or sadness, or whatever, but I just felt this huge emptiness. Lucas was arrested 2 days later, along with 3 of his business partners. And according to my lawyer, he was facing like 8 years in prison for financial fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering. Isabella was facing lesser charges because technically she had only been an accomplice, but she was still looking at like 2 or 3 years in jail. I filed divorce papers immediately after Isabella posted bail and requested full custody of Ruby based on Isabella's criminal charges and her infidelity. My lawyer said it was an open and shut case, that no judge was going to give shared custody to a woman who was facing federal charges and who had cheated on her husband for years. Isabella didn't even fight for custody. I think she knew she didn't have any chance. And besides, her lawyer told her that her best strategy was to cooperate with prosecutors and accept a plea deal, which meant she was probably going to have to do some time in prison anyway. A divorce was finalized like 4 months after I discovered everything. It was fast because Isabella didn't fight anything. Probably because her lawyer told her that if she fought for money or property, I could push for longer sentences. Or something like that. I'm not sure exactly about the legal strategy, but it worked in my favor. I kept the house, full custody of Ruby, all our savings, basically everything. Isabella was left with nothing except the criminal charges and the shame of all our friends and family knowing what she had done. Isabella's family, who had always been super close to me, completely stopped talking to her when they found out. Her dad called me to apologize and tell me he hadn't raised her to be like that, which was weird but appreciated, I guess. My parents cut all contact with Lucas, obviously. They didn't even go to his trial. And I think my mom still cries sometimes because she basically lost a son. Not because of jail, but because what he did was unforgivable. I haven't spoken to Lucas since that day in his office. I don't even know exactly how much time they gave him in the end. I think it was like 6 or 8 years. But honestly, I don't care. Like that man ceased to exist for me the day I discovered the truth. Sometimes I think about all the times I trusted him, all the times I considered him my best friend besides my brother, and I feel stupid. How did I not see the signs? How did I not notice something in 8 years? Ruby is okay. Thank God. Like she's so little she doesn't really understand what happened. She just knows that mom had to leave for a while for work. That's the story we agreed to tell her until she's older and can understand better. She asks about Isabella sometimes, and I always tell her the truth in an age-appropriate way, that mom made some mistakes and has to fix some things but that she still loves her. I don't know if Isabella is going to want to have a relationship with Ruby after she gets out of prison. Honestly, I don't know what's going to happen with that. But for now, Ruby is happy and healthy, and that's all that matters. I sold the house like 2 months ago because I couldn't be there anymore. Every room had memories of Isabella, of Lucas, playing with Ruby, of this fake life I thought I was living. I bought a smaller house in a different neighborhood in San Jose, closer to Ruby's school, and we're starting over, just her and me. My parents help us a lot. They come like 3 times a week to see Ruby, and I've been focusing on work and being the best dad I can be. Sometimes I feel lonely, honestly, like I go out with friends and see happy couples and I think, was that ever real for me or was it always a lie? I'm not ready to date anyone new. I'm probably not going to be ready for a good while. There's too much to process still. Isabella is awaiting her final sentence. I think her lawyer is negotiating a plea deal that involves like 18 months in a minimum security federal prison and 3 years of probation after. Lucas is already locked up. He started his sentence like 3 months ago. And from what I heard from a mutual friend who still talks to some of his former colleagues, he's in a federal prison somewhere, in Northern California. I don't feel sorry for either of them, honestly. Like they made their choices and now they have to live with the consequences, just like I have to live with the consequences of trusting the wrong people. What hurts me the most, even now, isn't so much Isabella's betrayal, although that was horrible. It's Lucas's betrayal. He was my brother. We grew up together. We shared a room until I left for college. He was my best man at my wedding, and I thought I was going to be the best man at his someday. How does someone do that? How do you sleep at night knowing you're systematically destroying your brother for years? Sometimes I think about all the times the 3 of us were together, me, Isabella, and Lucas, at family dinners or Ruby's birthdays or casual events, and they were there acting like nothing while probably planning when they were going to see each other alone next time. It's sick, literally and completely sick. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust anyone completely again. Melissa, Isabella's friend who gave me the flash drive, turned out to be a real lifesaver. After all this, we became friends. She explained to me that she had known about the affair for years, but that Isabella had made her promise she would never say anything, but that after so long she couldn't keep being complicit, especially when she saw how happy I was at the anniversary party, having no idea what was going on. I'll be eternally grateful to her for having the courage to tell me the truth, even if that truth destroyed my life, because I needed to know it. Melissa broke her friendship with Isabella, obviously, said she can't be friends with someone capable of lying like that for so long. I'm in therapy now. I go like twice a month, and it's helping, I guess. Like at least I have someone to talk to about all this without feeling like I'm burdening my friends or family with my problems. My therapist says that what I'm feeling is normal, that betrayal at this level is a type of trauma and that it's going to take time to heal, that there's no timeline for this. Some days I'm okay, I can function normally, go to work, play with Ruby, watch a movie, and other days I wake up and feel like someone stuck a knife in my chest and is slowly twisting it. But the good days are starting to be more frequent than the bad days, and I guess that's progress. Ruby and I are creating our own traditions now. Like on Saturdays, we make pancakes together and watch dinosaur movies that she loves, and on Sundays, we go to the park or the library. She's my motivation to keep going, to not get stuck in bitterness and anger, because she needs a dad who's present and happy, not one who's consumed by what happened. I bought her one of those explorer hats that Lucas used to buy her, but this time it was me who gave it to her. And we play looking for dinosaurs in our new yard. And she was so happy that I forgot for a moment all the shit that happened. I don't know what's going to happen when Isabella gets out of prison, if she's going to want to be part of Ruby's life or if she's just going to disappear. Part of me hopes she disappears, that she leaves us alone so we can keep rebuilding our lives. But another part of me knows that Ruby deserves to have a relationship with her mom, if Isabella can be a good mother. Which honestly, I'm not sure she can after all this. But that's a decision for the future. For now, I'm focusing on the present, on being here for Ruby, on healing as best I can. Last week, Ruby asked me if Mom was going to come back someday to live with us. I told her the truth, that I didn't know, that Mom and Dad weren't going to be together anymore, but that we both loved her very much. She thought for a moment, biting her lower lip like she does when she's concentrating, and then she hugged me and said, It's okay, Dad. I'm fine here with you anyway. And that's enough for now, I guess. I don't have all the answers. I don't know what the future is. I'm going to be like, but I have my daughter. I have my health. I have a job I like. And I have the truth. Finally, I have the truth about who the people around me really were. And with that, somehow, I'm going to be okay.